Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 512 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Ayalon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and an author. Our fifth book just came out. It's called Perseverance and How to Be a Great Fraternity or Sorority Alumnus. So I want you to go and pick up that book on Amazon or Barnes & Noble today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, people mistakenly see success and they assume that it was a straight line getting there. The reality is, we've all made mistakes, myself included. And the question is, how do we take that loss and turn it into a massive success? Our next guest has some thoughts that will help to get you there as well. Drawing from his own struggles with debilitating health issues, financial ruin, and personal loss, Dr. Philip Agrios developed an unparalleled method that not only helps businesses thrive, but also restores relationships, improves health, and creates lasting happiness. So, whether you're a business owner battling procrastination or imposter syndrome, you're a spouse trying to save a marriage, a parent who's struggling with an out of control teenager, someone who's trying to navigate the dating world in college, or you're frustrated by declining health and unhealthy habits in your life, Dr. Agrios has the solution to help you take control and win. Welcome to the show, Dr. Agrios.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate, honored to be here.
Hey, it is fantastic to have you on the show. You have such an incredible story, and I thought it would really resonate with the college students just because, again, I mean, everyone just assumes that you just go straight to success. They see that success, but they don't see all of the hardship and all of the struggles that are underneath. And so I want to talk a little bit about your thriving chiropractic practice that you had in New Jersey. This was a 2,700 square foot clinic that housed medical doctors, physical therapists, nutritionists, and all kinds of health professionals. Talk to our audience. What happened to your health center?
Well, it all started from a false accusation from an insurance company, and three things were going to happen. I was going to jail for fraud. I was going to lose my chiropractic license, and I had to pay back 3 times of what they had paid me. And like I said, it was a false accusation. Nothing ever happened except for a lot of stress that destroyed my health as well as my practice. So during that time, my father, 71-year-old, he was healthy, attracted brain cancer, and 7 months later he passed. I became the primary caretaker of my mom, who 7 years later passed. But during that time, I lost my practice. I couldn't practice anymore due to a disability. I had numbness and weakness on both my hands. It was called thoracic outlet syndrome, carpal tunnel. And I was getting out of bed, feeling I was walking on glass. And I was in my late 30s, and I had to close my 15-year-old practice. It was like one of my kids, dying, right? It was such trauma. But that didn't stop there. We went through a financial ruin. I had a horrific divorce. One of my daughters almost committed suicide. They said that if my ex came home 10 minutes later, she would not be with us today. So I could keep on going, but it was all good because it allowed me to discover what I was able to discover. And I have no regret because everything that came out of that is what's happening today. I became more resilient and more grateful for what happened because I wouldn't be here talking with you at this moment.
Wow, what a story. Oh my gosh. The other interesting thing was that there was a discovery that was made regarding human behavior. And you started studying this. The more you dove into this concept, the more you began to realize why and how your past decisions led you to where you were. And I think this is just fascinating. What exactly did you realize here?
So during the time, it just started to come. I wondered why I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be, why my kids were having problems, my patients, and everything else. And I stumbled across what I call the inborn sabotage trait. It's a trait that actually stops our success because subconsciously, to go forward and achieve or sustain that success is more painful. So we go back doing the same thing over and over again. So self-sabotage is not a problem. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just you're in just protection. That's all you're doing. It's a part of you that's protecting yourself. When I first found it, I was like, this is no way. This is too freaking simple. No way. So I went out to try to disprove it. And over 30 years researching thousands and thousands of people, not only were able to prove it, found a way to switch it off instantly, and it works 100% of the time. And that's where we developed the T now method, T standing for transcending. Because when you use this, what we call the antidote, which is the exact opposite to this trait, you instantly move forward and grow and be inspired instead of being frustrated and desperate.
Wow. Okay. So this is a huge finding, and you kind of left me on the edge of the cliff here. How do you stop self-sabotage in your life? Tell me, like, what do I have to do?
So here's the thing. The inborn sabotage trait, we call the saboteur for short, is there to bring adversity into your life for you to evolve. So when you are going through struggles, whether it's, failing out of college, or, somebody dumped you, or you're having problems with the clicks and all this other stuff, you're just ready to evolve. You're ready to do something different than what you were doing. So I get my clients and tell them, get excited when things aren't going your way, because you're ready to evolve. But what happens is we shrink. We go into that contraction to protect ourselves, or we'll go forward and maybe screaming, yell, and do other things, because there's two type of protections. There's over engagement and there's withdrawal. It's finding the balance. And what we found is the T now method immediately brings you to that balance and area. And depending on what saboteur you were born with, yes, you were born with this trait, and it's there to protect you. So once you understand what this trait is, you will now know why everything happened in the past, why it's happening now, and how to deter it later in the future. But you will always have this trait, because it would be stupid getting rid of a protective trait, right? So it's there. So you need to learn how to dance with it and how to switch it off. And our goal is for you to use this antidote subconsciously more than you've been using your saboteur.
This really resonates with me because certainly I've gone through different stages in my life, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing. When something negative happens, like to your business, as an example, you start wondering, why is this happening? I'm doing all of the right things, and you're just racking your brain going, why is this happening? It doesn't make any sense. And the reality is you're just ready to evolve into the next chapter. And
Right.
like, if that didn't happen, then I don't think I would have evolved into the next chapter. Now I can look back on it and go, of course that had to happen because something needed to push me into the next chapter. I wouldn't have gone on my own. I would have
Oh,
just stayed in that comfortable place, right? Does that make
absolutely.
sense to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, heck, I wish I had this when I was in college.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me tell you a little story about me. I was in pre-med. I came from a Greek, Italian, Catholic family. Okay. When I went to college, it was all hell broke loose. All right. And I pulled a 2.8. I was going to get thrown out of the entire science department, but I talked my way into at least, it was med tech. So I was what? I went into intermission, that intersection they had. I pulled the 4.0, and then from there I pulled the 3.6 to 3.8. So did I fail? No. See, here's the thing about failure. Failure and success happen at the exact same time. So let me explain. Did I fail and got myself to 2.8, or I was very successful at being a 2.8 student? I knew exactly what to do. I knew how to party really well. I knew not to study well. I knew that whatever the things I did, playing soccer, I was on the team, all this stuff, because I made all that a priority than my school. So I was very successful at a 2.8 student. I didn't fail. I was successful. How do you want to look at it? And then when I shifted it, I failed being a 2.8 student and decided to become a high 3 point, a higher in the 3 points, sixes and whatever, to do that. So everything inside of you is there. There's no such thing as lack. Everything is in you. So you got to realize that you are the mass murderer, you are the happy person, you're the loving person, you're the sad person, you're the ugly person, you're the beautiful person. Everything's in you. It's up to you what you want to show everybody else as well as yourself.
Fascinating stuff. I know you work with a lot of people that tend to procrastinate, and many of our listeners are procrastinating assignments right now in
Yes.
college. What
Yep.
advice do you have for them?
Era, I still have that time. So here, when you go into procrastination, your saboteur kicks in. So there's only three saboteurs out of 70 billion people. So there's only three. So those of you who are listening, you only have one. Okay. So when you are procrastinating, I'm going to give you three reasons why to procrastinate and how to shift it ready. So get your pen out and let's go, or your phone and type, right?
Okay.
Just showed my age taking a pen and paper out. So number one, you don't have enough knowledge, so you freeze. So when you have little to no knowledge, you freeze. Number one, little to no knowledge, you freeze. Number two, your 80% are others 100%. What does that mean? If you have a paper, those of you who are the perfectionists, you got to write it over and over again. 80%, if it's done, to 90%, just get it out and do the other things you need to do. Get things moving. Don't let perfectionism hold you back, or that imposter syndrome to hold you back. Just, it's 80% done, get it out. Okay. So we tell our clients who are business owners, get the airplane up in the air, get your course going, get your book written, and then you can always tweak it later. And then three is you're bored or there's too much detail. Okay, so if you're sitting there and going, I'm ready to want to leave, the question would be is which one or which three, or I may be having all three of them at the same time. So at that moment, go do something, put an alarm on for 5 minutes, come back and go, okay, what is it? Am I been bored, or do I need to look up something else? Do I need to find somebody? Is it me just stopping and I don't have enough trust and faith in myself? So number two is you don't have enough faith and trust in yourself. So again, I have little to no knowledge. So go get it, or, take a few minutes and then go search it. Two, I don't have enough trust and faith in myself. And then three, you're bored or there's just too much detail. So those are usually the three reasons you procrastinate. So by knowing which one it is, you can move forward. But I've had all three at one time. So you got to sit back and then become aware this is what's happening. Okay. And some of you may not feel valued, right? You don't have enough trust and faith. You don't feel valued that what you have is good enough. So just, again, get it out and then see how that went.
Mhm. So, I agree with you. You said before, I wish that I had this information when I was in college, and now I'm feeling the same way. I wish I had all of this in college. It would have helped me to get
Mhm.
over some of these obstacles that are going to come because you will fail in life. All of us at some point are going to fail. So the question is, how do we turn a failure into your biggest asset? How do we make that leap?
So here's what I tell my clients. The universe or God or your higher conscious, whatever you want to call that higher power, doesn't speak English, it doesn't speak French, it doesn't speak any language. It speaks experience. So when you have a particular experience happening to you at this moment, it's trying to show you three things, and it's up to you which one you want to look at. Where's the benefit? How is it causing a problem in my life? Or it just is. If you look at it as just is, or write these two words down, guys, that's interesting. That's interesting are two great words to neutralize any situation. Well, that's interesting. That person just called me a name. All right. Or that's interesting. What it does, it depersonalizes the situation so you can look at it in a much different way, like a movie. How many times did you guys are looking at a movie and going, why is she allowing this guy to, it's so obvious. Why is he, taking advantage of her? Right. But it's happening to you as well. So by that's interesting, it depersonalizes it, and then you can look at it more neutrally.
Mm.
But everything in your life is a benefit, a detriment, or it just is. It's up to you what you want to look at. So when the situation comes, I'm failing out of college. Okay, instead of boo hoo, my parents going to kill me, what am I doing? So here's a great question to ask yourself. Why am I protecting myself at this moment in time? Why am I protecting myself to go out and study? Why am I protecting myself to let this person take and get advantage of me? Why am I why am I protecting myself where I'm not expressing my thoughts and my feelings to people? What's really going on? And by helping yourself, just ask that question and just let it kind of marinate over the next, hour or two or a day or two. The answer will start coming if you're open to it.
all of our college student listeners, they all want to be successful in whatever company they decide to go and work for after graduation. And I know that you've looked at some of the top executives, around the country, and you kind of feel that there's a single trait that separates all of those top executives from everybody else in the company. So, what is that trait, and how do we master that?
So what we found is, and we've dealt with the CEOs where they have imposters. When I first started this out, I was kind of naive of, these top guys, they should be fine and they're very, confident and all that. But everybody has their little protection, right? Whether it's imposter syndrome, whether procrastinating or other fears. So that because you have $1 million doesn't mean your life goes away. It actually creates different challenges and experiences, right?
Mhm.
If you have $5 in the bank, $1 million in the bank, or $1 trillion in the bank, you all are here. See, here's what I was never taught, and I don't think maybe your listeners, the majority, have been taught. If you think you're here for everything to go well in your life, then you have no clue why you're here. You're here for the contrast. You're here to have an experience, to move and to evolve. So everything that comes your way is for you to evolve. If you just have that thought process and go, okay, what is this trying to tell me? And then this is not woo-woo stuff, guys. I'm telling you, I prove this every day with people, multimillionaires down to startups, okay, to even teenagers I work with as well. So what I'm trying to explain to you is that do your homework, figure this out, prove me wrong, do this and see what happens.
I like that. Everything is here to help you evolve. I mean, a really great motto, I think, for life. And if you look at it from that perspective, then you can deal with just about anything.
Yeah. Trust me,
This is,
I've been almost through everything you can possibly think of, and that's what got me through it.
yeah. Right now, I think the college campuses, we're dealing with mental health issues all the time. If you look at, especially with men too, I've noticed quite a bit that every single year, like that I was the executive director of a major men's fraternity, we had 115,000 members. And so I would be tracking some of these mental health issues and then even suicides within our organization. I'm in a doctorate program right now at MTSU, and there was just a suicide that happened yesterday on campus in the library where students actually saw what had happened. And classes are actually canceled for today. So, I mean, this is happening. Okay. This is
Yeah.
happening in big numbers. And I think a lot of it has to do with the anxiety and the stress that these students are under. And we can certainly look at some other factors, social media. What does isolation do for college students today? So I guess the question here is, how do you overcome all of that anxiety and all of that stress without the medication?
So my own daughter uh, was part of the COVID over the last 2 years, right? The
Mhm,
last 2 years where she was in college and now she's home, right?
mhm,
And helping her deal with that and like, I'm losing the fun. And I said, yeah, I know it sucks. So what are you going to do about it? Right? I told her you can focus on it sucking, or why is it here? How can you use this to move forward in a different direction? Is it an opportunity for you? And we were able to find some opportunities for her. But, thank goodness I knew this, because if back when 20 years ago, I would have probably said, yeah, this sucks and everything else. Right.
mhm.
So anxiety is just a protection. Let me say that again. Anxiety is a signal that you are protecting. Most likely, you're looking in the future. Depression usually, see, a lot of times, there's only a few people that, not a few percentage that's depressed, but you're sad. There's a difference between depression, which needs medical attention, where you're sad, but we call it depression. No, you're sad because things aren't going the way you would think they want to go. And I cannot tell you how many times with myself and the thousands and thousands of people I've dealt with, I've never met anybody that when they were in a sad position, the thing that was happening to them, when they were open to it, we found the benefit and they realized, wow, this was not as bad as I thought it was. But at that moment, so here's the other thing. If you're eating like crap, if you're eating all the dyes and things like that, your brain chemistry will change. Okay. So if you're depressed, the first question I always ask my people, of your anxiety or your brain fog, you can't think too well, or whatever the case may be, what did I eat or drink 2 to 3 hours ago? And then write it down. Or was I stressed 2, 3 hours ago? Write it down. My own niece had very high anxiety. When she found her antidote and really worked with it, she's doing so much better. And that's interesting. Those two words helped tremendously. Well, that's interesting. I'm freaking out about this. Well, you know what? If you can predict that future, please email me the lottery tickets this week. Be happy to share that with everybody else, because you cannot predict your future. Your present actually creates your future. Okay. So if you're focusing on your future, you actually leave your present, and now your future becomes your present. So your body actually thinks it's actually happening. So your cortisol levels up and all the hormones start kicking in and you feel like crap. Why? Because it's an illusion. Same thing with the past. So as soon as you focus on the past more than 17 seconds or a couple of minutes, or the future, and you're freaking out about it, by doing so, the present becomes your past and your future become your present. And now it actually thinks it's happening, compared to it's an illusion. So one of the questions is, what is the worst that can happen if this actually happens? Right? And a lot of times people go, nothing. I said, no, there is, because that's where you're freaking out.
Mhm.
Well, if it's this, what's the percentage of it actually happening? Is it a possibility versus a probability? Let me explain. So if I'm in back in 2000, I'm in the towers and I just escaped. 10 years later, I'm in a high rise and I'm looking, and there's a plane going perpendicular 2 miles away, and I'm freaking out. Please don't let it hit the building. Please don't let it hit the building. Right? Is it possible it can hit the building? Absolutely. But what's the possibility of it? What's the probability of it? 0 to none. So when the people look at their future and their present, they go on possibility, not what's really probable. And a lot of times it's not as bad as you think it's going to be. And if it is, okay, what can I do? What support system can I have? A lot of these kids don't have support. When you and I were in college, who was our support system? The same kids have no experience, have no clue what to do, and we rely on the people that have no clue and for our support system. So you need to find people. I mean, you got podcasters, you got whatever. Find some type of mentor that has gone through very similar to you, and what did they do? Just mimic what they did, or somewhat of they did. I hope that's helping.
It really is very helpful. I talk about that all the time. It just seems like college students depend on each other for advice, but meanwhile, they've never been through it. They haven't been in the workforce to really understand, say, oh, I've seen this before. This is what we did. And there are plenty of mentors, to your point, that are in your fraternity, in your sorority, alumni that are willing to help you, especially as a college student. If a college student reaches out to me, I'm going to say, yes, I'll help you. I mean, it might not be today just because my calendar is full, but in a week or two, I will absolutely help you. Why? Because I know the college student has nothing to sell me. Nothing. They just want more information to help get to where I am. That's it. That's
Absolutely.
all they're looking for. So, like, I will absolutely help you. And I think, all alumni feel that way. And so, or for most of them anyway. So the bottom line is reach out. I think you're so right about that. And, I also think about, this COVID-19 situation and the isolation that we all went through. And I know for a fact there are companies out there that are successful today because of the pandemic.
Hmm.
If we didn't have the pandemic, think about Zoom, right? I mean, think about all of these products that we use today that wasn't a thing before COVID-19, but we use it every single day. It's a part of our life, and it never would have happened. Maybe
Absolutely.
remote work and other things that are like a really big trend right now. Maybe these things don't even exist and are not even an option because the pandemic, either happened or didn't happen. And so, I really think if we look at things like that, that everything is happening essentially for a reason, and now we have to figure out how do we get over this hump. Then everything starts to make sense.
Yeah, I had businesses during the pandemic, okay,
Mhm.
and not one of them um, failed,
Right.
okay, or went out of business. What they did, the first question was, okay, you done crying? I'm just how it is, right? You done crying? All right, you done being a victim? That's fine. Cool, you're just in protection. Are we good now? I'm gonna transgress one quick minute. I
Sure.
don't care if you go in the corner, take your pillow, go into fetal position, and suck your thumb on the floor. I'm good with that. That's just protection.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. How long are you there for?
Mhm.
So if you're freaking out, whatever, you have anxiety, cool, no problem. How long are you going to have it before you go, okay, all right, I'm giving myself 5 minutes or whatever, no longer than a day. Okay. Go to bed, take a nap, wake up. You got a clean canvas, and now pick bright colors to paint your day instead of the dark and gloomy ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
So during that time, I would tell the clients, okay, what could be a good reason for this and how can you adapt? And that's what key is. They adapted. We found new income, new things they never thought about. And now they thrived compared to dissolve in that area,
Yeah.
right?
I mean, Greek University is a perfect case study. I mean, I was freaking out when the pandemic happened. I mean, we're public speakers, right? Our whole business is around being other people. And I'm talking about crowds of 4 or 5,000 college students, right? There was no gatherings of 4 or 5,000 students. Like all of that was canceled. And I'm saying to myself, what in the world are we going to do now? So then it's like fetal position, right?
Yep.
Like what? I mean, my business is sunk, right? And then we started hopping on Zoom, and actually, people really wanted to connect. I mean, we
Mhm.
were trying to figure out how do we keep the students together on a college campus when we couldn't be physically next to each other. And then, suddenly these Zoom presentations just absolutely took off. And I tell you what, we did so well during the pandemic. And the reason is because we could essentially do 3 programs a day at 3 different universities. Whereas before the pandemic, it would take us a day or two to travel between these 3 institutions. And in a Zoom environment, we had no expenses. There was no hotel expenses. There was no flight expenses. We literally had dinner with our family, and then we went to go and do a presentation in the next room. So, we did so well, and it was all because of, just thinking outside of the box and figuring out how we going to evolve. And how are we going to adapt, in your words? So yeah, I mean, I think it's a perfect case study to figure out
If
what
we
to
go
do.
back to that leadership trait,
Yeah.
not, there's more than that, but I mean, it's, a good leader is there to serve, not to manage. If those of you who are going to be managers and leaders, you never manage anybody, you measure them. You never manage anybody. You don't micromanage. You get self-starters, people who can self-manage themselves, and then you measure their goals of how well they're doing. Okay. So that way. But to be resilient and grateful for what's happening, but adaptation is key to any leader because when things are hitting, hitting the fan, they're going to look at a leader will step up and know not to freak out and know how to adapt the situation and compared to freaking out with everybody else.
Yeah. Well, speaking of adapting to a situation, I talk about hazing prevention on these college campuses on a weekly basis to college students. And I remember that story that you told me that your daughter was bullied, but then she used that T-Now method in order to help confront her bullies and then find some benefit from that bullying experience. What
Mhm.
exactly did you teach your daughter there?
So I didn't know she was bullied for, she never said anything. That's one of the saboteurs. They don't talk, they don't express themselves, things like that.
Mhm.
The other two are they're scattered all over the place. They wing things. They wait to the last minute. They don't like to be told what to do. The third one is they overly give. They have a hard time saying no. They don't set boundaries. People take advantage of their kindness. Okay, so that's just a summary of all three. But with her, she didn't really say anything until about sophomore in high school. And when I found out, did I go and tell the school that they did a horrible job and scream at them? No, I went, I'm a parent. This is my responsibility, not school. So I sat with her and go, okay, you know what I do. So we know the victimizing, we know what the, not the benefit of it is, but what's the benefit of it? What is the benefit? And we realized that I helped her use her antidote and she was able to actually confront her bullies. And when she confronted them, they backed down as 99.9% will. Okay. And now she started to talk up and start to be active in the high school and everything else in the way that people, the things that these people were telling her, which were not true, people, I said, look, those people who care about you know you, they'll know that this was not you. The other ones, who cares about them? They'll think whatever they need to do because they have to feel better about themselves, so they have to do gossip, right? If anybody, see, I'm going I'm going tangent here.
Yeah.
So if you have somebody come up to you and go, so Michael, I come up to you and go, Michael, you're just a real jerk. You're this and this and that. The first thing you should do, is it true? Is it true? Yeah,
No.
it is freaking true. Okay. So what do I say? You go, Phil, I want to thank you. I've been really working on this, and I want to thank you for calling me out on this. And I'm going to continue moving forward. Do you have any ideas of what I could do? What did I do that maybe I could do differently? What do you think they're going to do? They're going to like, what? I've seen this with adults.
Yeah.
Okay. Not even with teenagers. Okay.
Mhm.
Two, if it's not true, I usually tell people, go, do you feel better? What do you mean? Well, obviously, you had to put me down in order to feel better about yourself. So I was just curious if by doing that, did you feel better? Is it making you feel better? They don't know what to do. So when you go after them, you are actually giving them ammunition to shoot back at you. So if you go, well, that's really interesting. And then if you just stay more neutral and in control of your own emotions, they're going to pick on somebody else that's going to freak out. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Wow.
So with my daughter, that's what we were able to do. And then
Mhm.
when she got into college, guess what happened? She went back to being that situation, and people were taking advantage of her and bullying her. And I said, so what are you going to do? Right? I didn't go over there and now they're college kids and beat them up. I just said, what are you going to do? And I helped her through it. And now, and we found the benefit because she was going to be a wildlife veterinarian, and she was also environmental, but focus on trees and all that. I said, can you see how the bully was showing you how animals and trees feel by being bullied by environmental and being abused? So now you have that opportunity, but now you're able to turn around. Now you're able to become more strong and help animals and the environment by speaking up, because before you weren't.
Mhm. Wow. What an incredible lesson. That's a life lesson right there for your daughter that I'm sure she's going to take with her. Really, really good stuff. This has been fascinating.
It did with her, then she got dealing with boys that were not really, not treating. And I'm like,
Same
okay,
thing.
what are you gonna
Mhm.
do? Now
Mhm.
she has a great person. Same thing with my oldest one. And that
Mhm.
comes back from when we were being divorced. One of the reasons why I got divorced, because I said to myself, if I don't, I'm showing my kids that this is normal and healthy.
Mhm.
And I realized that it is not. And when I have my second wife, we got married, I remember my niece and nephew said to me one time, he goes, you have a weird relationship. And I said, yeah, it's called healthy and normal that you're not used to. So take some notes and I'm going to show you what you need. And my daughter went through a lot of different, my oldest one. Now she has a great guy. I mean, it's everything came together because she was listening to what the antidote was, what she was doing. She was able to get rid of toxicity. She had so much toxicity. We sat and we talked about it and got through it until she said no more. And then all of a sudden, within a month or two, things started to come her way. And now we have a brand new granddaughter, and my oldest one just finally now have somebody who's really good too. So the kids are doing well. So, but
That's
yeah.
great. That is awesome. Really, really great to hear. I love all of that. That's fantastic. Now, just east of you, as you start heading towards the ocean, there's this beautiful place that's called Point Pleasant, New Jersey. Now, this was a magical place for me as a kid. My sister and I would hang out on the boardwalk there at Point Pleasant. We would enjoy the beaches all weekend long. I mean, we would get pizza at the pizzeria there on the boardwalk. I still remember it. I can still taste it. When I get back to that area of the country, is there a restaurant in that area that you absolutely love?
Yeah, so actually I was there about 6 weeks ago. My daughter, she's bartending. So if during the summertime, Jenks is a hopping
Yes,
place,
yes.
along with Bar A in Belmar. She
Mhm.
that end of it too as well. But there's two places I would think. I went to a thing called Shrimp Box.
Uh-huh.
That's really good. But then if, there's a thing called Spikes. Spikes is where you can actually buy seafood. You see the food, but you can also there's a restaurant where you can get it. I love my king crab. I love my snow crab. So I just sit there and I just get all messy, and it's great. So those are the two places. And there are so many other great places. So
Yeah.
anybody from Point Pleasant going, you forgot about this one, or, I would think
There's a
those
lot.
are off the top of my head. Those are the two that come to mind.
Those are great suggestions. I do miss those snow crabs. Boy, oh boy, do I miss eating all of that stuff. It's fantastic. Now I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I don't get any of that seafood because anything that I get is like literally flown in, right? It's not
Well,
like Point Pleasant.
well, my nephew just moved out to 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago. So we're heading back to Nashville one day. So he lives in
Right.
Nashville. So maybe
Yeah.
have a cup of coffee or something.
Absolutely, absolutely. You'll love it. I mean, it really is a great place. Don't get me wrong. I mean, the people
Yeah.
are fantastic. The weather is
Hmm.
great. Lots of entertainment, live music. If you're into, any kind of live music, it's really fantastic and the best place on earth. But don't go for the seafood. Instead, go for the barbecue while you're here. And
Yes,
that's some wise words right there.
absolutely.
All right. So if our college student listeners, if they want to pick up your book, I know it's called Life's One Law. Maybe they want to sign up for some training with you. Where should they go to connect with you and learn more about the T Now method?
So the best thing, the T Now Masterclass, that's for our business owners and things like that. That's our higher end coaching. But we have a new membership out, and they can go to the tnowmethod.com, and it'll be out in mid-November. And they'll get we're starting at like $27 a month. It's real low because I want teenagers and stuff like that to have it. And for any reason, those guys, you hear this afterwards and our $27 is gone, just put in the coupon box student and you can get it at $27. How's that?
Perfect.
And then from there, you get a little mini course, you get your inborn sabotaging trait, and you get your antidote. You'll know exactly what's going on. And then every week, we're going to talk about how your particular antidote deals with your career, business, or college, too, your relationships, as well as your health. So, and then there's a 1 hour we get on live and answer questions on Zoom.
Fantastic. I love all
Yep.
the resources. It's the tnowmethod.com. Go there and get all of the things. And if for some reason you can't get that $27, use that code student and you will get the $27 deal per month. And I tell you what, I mean, if it's just as good as this interview and more, then it's great information that's going to take these students very far. So
Thank you.
thank you for sharing all of this with our audience today. We appreciate it.
Oh, I hope this was valuable for everybody, and thank you so much. I had a blast, so I hope they were able to focus enough to listen to what we had to say.
Yeah, it's chock full of information. I think they're going to have to go back and listen to it again just to absorb everything and all the information that we talked
Exactly.
about in only 30 minutes. We got to a lot.
Yeah.
So we really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Dr. Agrios. And to our audience, if you enjoyed this conversation, I want you to like it and I want you to share it with other college students on social media. And we thank you so much for being here today. We'll see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast.